Hi, I'm Naturopath Kimballe Robyzen. Today, I will explain how to identify what is the underlying cause to your hormone imbalance. To start with, I'll provide a little bit of context. Our hormone system is actually called the endocrine system, and it includes our reproductive organs, adrenals just above our kidneys here, thyroid and pancreas. It operates like a circulating loop of signals that provides constant feedback to our pituitary gland in our brain to modulate the function of each gland and in turn regulate how much of each hormone is released into circulation. This whole orchestra of constant adjustment is supervised by our hypothalamus, and it sits just above the pituitary. The hypothalamus is our master gland, responsible for our body's overall balance, known as homeostasis. So it's like a diamond-shaped circuit, starting with the hypothalamus and pituitary running the show at the top, and connected to each organ in our hormone system. Okay, so now we understand the framework. And here is where it becomes specifically important. Our hormone system is predominantly operated by the parasympathetic nervous system. In holistic medicine, we affectionately refer to it as the rest and digest state. We give it that label because it is responsible for all our housekeeping functions like digestion, detoxification, healing, and in particular both immune and hormone balance. The takeaway message here is the rest and digest state must be active for the hormone balance to be effective. So adversely, the other half of the autonomic nervous system is the sympathetic nervous system. We call this the fight or flight state. It is our instinctual survival mechanism that responds to any form of stress or life-threatening signal. It activates our primal genes by stimulating our adrenals, which raises blood glucose and activates our motor functions to give us more energy and strength to defend ourselves. Our bodies literally cannot differentiate between, say, something like a bank mortgage and running from a saber-toothed tiger. And for some of us, it probably feels quite similar sometimes. It is actually the same as having fire alarm bells going off in our bodies, and it has an overriding effect on our hormone system. When someone is triggered into the fight or flight state too often and for extended periods of time, then all of their housekeeping functions, which includes hormone balance, will struggle to self-regulate because the wrong operating system is on. Think of it like trying to use a Windows program on an Apple computer. There's nothing wrong with the program, it's just not compatible with that system. So there are so many triggers in our modern life that will activate this fight or flight state. And you might be surprised just how common these triggers are. For example, just pushing yourself when you are tired is actually enough to switch on the adrenals to get you through the rest of the day. Even simply driving in traffic, we often underestimate just how taxing this daily activity is. Doing any task with a sense of urgency or chasing those familiar deadlines. Exposure to substances that we don't tolerate well. This will alert the body to a threatening signal. Emotional traumas are a big one. Emotions are deeply impactful on the nervous system and often have a lasting effect. Any kind of negative thought actually involving a form of fear or concern will do it as well. Taking on too much of a workload. And staying in toxic relationships actually are a huge burden and often not acknowledged due to keeping appearances. Over multitasking is another common one these days. And let's not forget that bank balance that's often nipping at our heels. So we can see it's quite impossible to avoid many of these sources of stress on any given day. Therefore, by default then, we are frequently switching on our alarm bells every time we need to jump through the next hoop in order to keep up with this modern life. That's quite a realization, isn't it? These very common elements of our daily life are directly interfering with our body's ability to balance itself and our hormones. And if that wasn't enough, there are often also hidden stress factors we need to consider. They are described as forms of metabolic stress. When present, They will sabotage many patients' best efforts considerably due to overactivating their nervous system. The most common of these metabolic pathways are known as methylation and pyroluria. They compromise the body's ability to supply enough neurotransmitters for our brain chemistry to feel balanced. In essence, keeping you stuck in the fight or flight state, despite how much meditation you may be doing on the beach. So we can begin to appreciate the injustice of blaming our organs for what's going wrong, just because they are the areas of the body presenting with uncomfortable symptoms. When we look deeper, we will usually find a combination of stress patterns that are particular to the individual that are interfering with the function of the gland, and the symptoms are simply an indication that it is struggling to defend itself from the impact of the stress. This applies to many conditions, but especially thyroid issues, adrenal fatigue, and any variety of reproductive hormone symptomology. Unfortunately, it's not as common as it should be, but a woman's normal menstrual cycle should be completely symptom-free. In fact, this should also apply to menopause. Typically, the accumulation over many years of any of these factors I've mentioned that interfere with hormone regulation are what are behind the menopausal hot flushes and night sweats. It is not necessary to depend on hormone therapy. In fact, doing so will only cause that underlying stress pattern to surface in another more extreme way later. The good news is, all of these factors contributing to hormonal imbalance can be improved considerably, if not completely reversed, by identifying and addressing your individual's metabolic needs. Remember those metabolic stress pathways I mentioned earlier, such as methylation and pyroluria? They require very specific nutrients to regulate their cycle and correct anomalies present within them that are particular to each individual. It is very much like filling in the potholes in your metabolic pathway to give you a smooth ride. And each person seems to have their own cluster of holes to fill. This largely undiagnosed biochemical story has proven to be such an intrinsic underlying factor to hormonal imbalance in clinical practice that its discovery inspired me to go to great lengths to thoroughly research this whole topic, receive mentoring from Australia's leading practitioner of extemporaneous compounding, and establish a compounding dispensary dedicated to producing personalised nutritional formulas designed to address this very thing. You could say I'm very passionate about it. What has been even more encouraging are the positive patient outcomes. I have been so impressed by the measurable results produced by personalised nutritional formulas that they have become a foundational feature of successful cases regaining natural hormone balance, which of course includes all the positive side effects that comes with. So there you have it. I hope that has provided you some insight into how to identify what is behind your hormone imbalance. Please feel free to reach out to me with any queries you may have, or to find out how to obtain your very own personalised formula tailored to your specific metabolic needs. Until then, wishing you empowered health and an inspired life filled with purpose.